I'm Richard Dodd, and you're listening to the Ecology Academy podcast. This is a show where we get to talk and learn about all things ecological, including interviews with top ecologists, both employers and employees, those working with ecologists, and also aspiring and inspiring career-seeking individuals setting out to make a difference. The show aims to provide you with insights, advice, and inspiration to help you succeed and excel as an effective ecologist and to make a real difference to our natural environment. Hi there, and welcome to another episode of the Ecology Academy podcast. Now, this episode is about navigating change. So what do we mean by this? Well, there's been a lot going on recently. I mean, you can't help but notice there's been lots of changes to and improvements to guidelines, bat survey guidelines, there's the bat mitigation guidelines. And of course, it is February 2024. Let's not also forget the biodiversity net gain becoming mandatory in England, and the sort of how we go about navigating this within both for ourselves. If we work for a company, how a company adapts to this, and how they adapt to these changes, and how our whole industry adapts to the changes too. And of course, the natural environment. How does this stand to benefit from these recent changes? So this episode is going to be a little bit strange one. It's just me today, and we're going to be looking at understanding these changes from an ecological point of view, from ourselves as ecological consultants, environmental managers, how we cope with this change, what we should be looking at to do in terms of helping ourselves to manage this change. We're going to look at the mindset for managing that change. We're also going to look at some practical strategies for adapting to change too, as well as, of course, looking at resources for ourselves as ecologists. So let's start with understanding these changes. Now, as I say, we can't help but notice there's been a lot of changes in the past 6 to 12 months. We've been gearing up for biodiversity net gain becoming mandatory in England for what seems like almost an eternity. Gone through those changes. There is a lot of information out there, some brilliant guidance being put together, and workshops being for free. So that's been put together by various bodies, and obviously, the people behind that, experts in their field providing that guidance. So, biodiversity net gain is pretty well covered. We know we know it's going to be arriving very shortly. As we record this, it's just before, I think we've got about 5 days before we actually go out to, for 5 to 7 days before it actually becomes mandatory. But before that, we've had the bat survey guidelines coming out, just the end of 2023, bat mitigation guidelines going out, and it can get overwhelming in terms of the amount of information we need to absorb. And what do we do with this information? How is it going to relate to what we do as ecologists out in the field? How we write our reports, and ultimately to the advice and information we give to our clients, managing their expectations, delivering upon those results, and clearly how that will also benefit our natural environments. So we need to ensure that we may be able to relearning some techniques, as well as learning new skills that are coming along with new technology being implemented in part of some of our survey efforts, AI, automation coming in, and being used extensively across our industry, as well as how do we advise our clients and what it means for them in terms of their outcomes. But also, there's going to be some changes. There's going to be some additional responsibilities that we may need to undertake, additional reporting and so forth. And so that's going to mean that probably we're going to manage the expectations in terms of time and money as well. So it's all these knock-on effects we're going to have to consider. How do we get the best out of this change, and making sure that it's implemented correctly? So that's what we're going to focus upon today. And I think the first part of it is about ourselves. Let's focus on how we deal with this. And I think mindset is going to be crucial for this. Now, for those of you who've listened to this podcast a few times, which I hope you have, and please, if it's your first time, you're very much welcome. And please, what I will say is, right at the very start of here, is to enable this to get better, this podcast to get better, improve it, we get more people involved, please do subscribe. It's amazing how many people just don't subscribe to this podcast. And that's the one thing I can ask for you to do as a favor for me, to go and subscribe to this podcast itself. It really does help improve our, understanding of numbers and so forth. But anyway, that's an aside. So let's talk about the mindset. And say, if you listen to the podcast before, we talked about mindset in a previous episodes. So this concept about mindset, and particularly a growth mindset, that was popularized by the psychologist Carol Dweck, and it suggested about our abilities and intelligence can be developed over time compared to what's known as a fixed mindset, which is, things happen for a reason. There's no point worrying about it because we cannot change anything. We just go on with the status quo. And that leads to issues related to the way we deal with not only problems arising within our own lives and challenges, but also, our expectations and outcomes of life too. So we're going to approach this, we should be approaching this with what's known as an open or growth mindset. And for us as ecologists, this means viewing new guidelines and regulations not as obstacles, but as opportunities to grow our expertise and enhance our impacts on our conservation efforts and restoring that biodiversity loss, which I'm extremely passionate about. So it's embracing a growth mindset. It encourages us to ask questions, seek out those learning opportunities, and remain adaptable in the face of change, because change is inevitable. We're always going to be experiencing some sort of change, whether it be change on a daily basis, where, seasonal, or, of course, and as these new things come in, these new guidance come in, how we approach this change. Now, I think staying resilient is also another key aspect of having the right mindset. Now, changes, especially significant ones like we're experiencing, can be challenging. So there's going to be frustration, there's going to be setbacks and a learning curve. We go through this learning curve, which starts off with a low amount of information and expertise and skill. And as we go along it, all of a sudden it becomes lighter. We go, actually, do you know what? I'm getting to understand this. And then it gets to another point, another inflection point, which goes, oh my gosh, there's so much to learn, so much to understand. I don't think I'll be able to do it all. And we sort of dip down again. And this curve is, it's more like a roller coaster ride. I think that's the way to treat it, that, we may be getting somewhere, then all of a sudden it changes. So, I think resilience is one of those words that gets bandied around, and it's right. We need to bounce back from certain challenges, and some of us, we all can do it, but it's a question of how long we stay in this. I think one of the terms was this pit of despair, which sounds really bad. You don't want to be in a pit of despair, do you? So it's looking at how do we navigate this change coming about? How do we move from a state of stasis to actually action? And this resilience is understanding that we can bounce back from these sort of challenges and move it forward. So it involves a positive outlook. It's managing stress effectively and learning from each other's experiences and our own experiences. And just remember that every challenge is an opportunity to learn something new. Now, also, let's not forget that we don't have to go alone. There is the power of others, seeking out assistance. And again, going to like core competencies, it's knowing our own limitations and also know when to ask for advice and also accept advice when it is offered. So it's the power of our own community, and the ecological community is amazing. So you can go on to these different platforms, social media platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn, and, but there's also, I say coaching. Coaching really does help. It's helped me. I know that I have my own personal coaches in terms of for my life, but also for business as well. And they help me enormously run through problems, because more than likely we probably have the solution, the answer ourselves, but it just needs teasing out. And I am actually on a coaching course at the moment, and it highlights so much the power of being able, someone being there just to listen to you. And the power to just have that freedom to talk is amazing. It's liberating. And so, I really do think, the power of coaching, being coached is extremely important. So let's not just go it alone. There are that support mechanisms there. So use those social media platforms, question it, and don't rely on it too heavily. But it's there. You make your own judgments. So I say no one navigates change in isolation, or no one should navigate change in isolation. And by leaning in on our professional networks, sharing knowledge, collaborating on best practice, we can support each other through these transitions. So don't think you have to go it alone. There's obviously, if you're a freelance ecologist, it may seem a lot harder for you, but you probably got your own networks. You go out there, those community forums we can reach out to, but there's always someone you can actually discuss things with, and doesn't mean that they're right. Doesn't mean you're wrong. Everyone will have a different opinion. So guidelines are especially that. It is a guidance on a particular approach. You may have a different interpretation of these guidelines and how to implement them. So no one really, there are right approaches, multiple approaches, and there are multiple wrong approaches, but it doesn't mean there's just one approach to take. So engaging in forums, as I said, attending workshops and participating in webinars. There's so many webinars out there, particularly for biodiversity net gain at the moment. Take advantage of those, explore them, stay curious. And, I think these are excellent ways to stay connected and informed. And finally, touched on one there, embracing a continuous learning sort of mindset. That curiosity, and we talk about curiosity a lot on this podcast, and just enabling that everything is a learning opportunity. We may not know it all today, but, each day, or, we can incrementally increase our knowledge, increase our understanding, and then gain that skill over time in order to help ourselves, help our colleagues, and help our communities and our natural environments. And as you're no doubt aware, the ecological field, it's dynamic at the moment. It really is changing. So I think we do need to stay informed about the latest research, the guidance, technologies. It's all part of our job. And how to become that effective ecologist, it's understanding that change is inevitable and we are part of that journey and embracing it. So I must admit, I'm probably guilty. I do love a shiny new penny. So when something new comes along, I probably do embrace it and rush into it. And, I've got to look at my own limitations, which is going too much into it and thinking, this is the best thing ever, without fully exploring it, questioning it, analysing the information coming in before adapting to it or adopting those new procedures. So that's where the benefit of having a fantastic team, which I do work with, are here, who can actually sense check things, make sure there is a bit of friction there. Friction can be good to actually pull us back a bit to say, actually, it looks like we should be going in this direction. What are the implications if we do? What are the benefits, and then what are the downsides of actually implementing this change? So this might mean dedicating time each day, each week to reading, listening to podcasts. Obviously, this one's a fantastic one. Attending training sessions. We just released, just to give an example, we just released Q Field for ecologists on our Ecology Academy platform there, which has been a great uptake on that. It's been needed, required. So this is tapping into using digital transformation, adopting new technologies out in the field rather than a pen and paper, collecting the information out in the field, putting that together and then using it to then transform the information back into the office environment, shall we say. But there are technologies there to link those devices together. Not just Q. Q Field is out now, to look at, but it's keeping up with the latest, information, the training sessions, even enrolling in those courses, and that delve into the specifics of new regulations and also survey techniques. So there you go. That's a little bit about mindset for managing the change. But of course, that's just an overview. Those are just words. You've got to implement them themselves. So let's look about the practical strategies for adapting to change. So as we mentioned before, in this dynamic field of ecology, it requires not just a positive mindset, but also actionable strategies. If we're going to achieve something, we need to do something. So whether it's updating, methods for bat surveys, the way we undertake them, adapting to new mitigation guidelines, understanding what works, what may not work, and questioning those. It's in a process of curiosity, or implementing the biodiversity net gain assessments, the different metrics there, the different reporting required. How can we stay ahead of that curve? Well, prioritization is going to be part of that. So with the sheer volume of updates and new information available, knowing where to focus our attention is going to be crucial. So I think, this is just me. I'm just giving you my insight here, but I think we need to start by identifying the changes that most directly impact our current areas of expertise. The current areas we prioritize in, and that really can help actually make a benefit. So if you undertake bat surveys, for instance, maybe you're going to want to start looking at the bat mitigation and bat survey guidelines, reading the guidance. It sounds really simple. The strategy is read the guidance. Okay, that's a great way to start. Next is certainly then discuss the guidance with maybe a colleague, engage on social media, in those wonderful sort of rabbit holes that people go down in as well. So, exploring different avenues, but be aware that there is always going to be that critic there who may have, going back to the mindset, may have a little bit of a fixed mindset. These are rubbish. I don't see why we need to change. They were perfectly good before. I don't agree with this person. It's take this chapter. I think we should have gone further. It doesn't go far enough. All these are, valid arguments, valid points, but they will end in sort of that pit of despair. It doesn't push you forward. So I think questioning things, yes. Understanding them, maybe going, actually, how can we implement these changes into my own working practices? And that's it. Reading, understanding, talking to people. And I think that is, and reevaluating your position. I think those are going to be important parts of the, prioritization, so starting with, let's say, if you're into bats, start with the, reading that guidance, obviously with biodiversity net gain, if you want to be specialized in that area, understanding the guidance that's coming out, the viewpoints of other stakeholders. So whether you be a landowner, a developer, the local planning authority, whether you be a broker, whether you be an ecologist, what does that actually mean to, how you go about communicating with these different stakeholders? Landscape architects, you may not have worked with them in such an intense way as you may have to with the biodiversity net gain implementation. So, it's looking at where can we make that most impact. I say also areas to look at in terms of gaining your knowledge using trusted sources such as official websites, official organizations and associations, peer-reviewed journals, for instance, gathering that accurate information and sharing it, setting up, you can even set up alerts. I've done this with, Google Alerts, setting up alert when something changes, I get a notification of that change. Obviously, on the government websites, you can set those as well. Then LinkedIn is amazing. If you go on LinkedIn daily, you'll see all these things pop up. And, I'm just talking about now, this is a little side. Obviously, Planning Policy Wales has just, edition 12, I think it is, has just come into effect. So I've got to read those guidelines, the planning policy there. And what does that mean to, previous iterations? And do we need to change our reports and advise our clients differently, so forth, on biodiversity? So it's setting up those alerts, keeping up to date with that information themselves. Also, implementing the new guidance. That's going to be part of your strategy. So how do you implement it? You've discussed it. You've talked with colleagues. You're going to approach, okay, have we got the right resources in terms of time, capability, capacity to actually deliver these new services or changes to these guidance, for instance. So, bat survey guidance, the use of night vision aids, for some instance. Do we have that? Can we get the equipment? Is it the right equipment? These are all decisions that may need to be made. If you're, again, if you're a freelance scholar, there's obviously information out there to get. It helps you if you're a part of a team to actually discuss these things and test them. Don't think you're going to get it perfect straight away. I think there is some mileage within the phrase, perfect is the enemy of good. It doesn't mean we shouldn't aim for perfection, but I think if you're a perfectionist, it can be overwhelming in terms of, well, I've got to get the right equipment. If I don't get the right equipment, it's going to be a waste of time. It's going to be a waste of money. That may happen, but things do change. Again, it's this change management, ensuring that we're on top of our game at a certain point, and understanding, if we did make a mistake or an error, it's learning from that. So it is always a learning opportunity. So I think in terms of implementing the guidance, once you've identified the key changes, the challenge is integrate them into our existing workflows. So it's going out and trying it. So the new guidance came out for the survey guidance, for instance, came out late last year. This is going to be the first season. We're going to implement it. Let's see how it goes. It's a test. So just treat it as an experiment. We are scientists as ecologists. Let's use this as an experiment and, get the most out of it. And it will inform the next round. Maybe by the end of May, beginning of June, we'd be to understand, do you know what? Actually, we're going to have to start charging our clients more because we're doing X, Y, Z instead of what we did before. There's an extra criteria. Or you may be even charging less because you can adapt new technologies into your survey methodology. For instance, the use of drones, I say these night vision aids, if we can do other surveys themselves, using, I'll just give a bit about AI. We use Copilot within some of our reporting to help us understand and summarize part of our reports. Doesn't write them for us. Don't get me wrong. We're not at that stage when they're writing our reports for us, but it does help us in terms of the quality assurance aspects and also summarization of different reports. So leaning into that. So again, it might mean revisiting, revising data collection methods, updating your report templates, or as I said, adopting new software tools. You need to start by outlining the specific steps you need to comply with the new guidelines. I would say compliance with a loose term there. Remember, they are guidance, but, local authorities, local planning authorities will be looking that you are going to implement these, and they'll be looking at justifications for you going outside of this guidance. So look at the new guidance. How are you going to comply with it? How are you going to convey that to your reader or readers, as we know, to ensure that it gets through the planning and serve the purpose that it's intended to do for our clients? You're going to create a timeline for incorporating these perhaps into your practice. So for instance, we're going through at the moment changing our project management software, or updating it really. So, we use software called Workflow Max. There are many of us out there. Workflow Max, it's one of these things that, you see a lot of people, it's going to be sunset, it's going to be retired at the end of June. And that's correct in terms of, who it's being currently hosted with Zero Company, but it's going to be taken on by a different company. So we've got to look at, okay, do we want that new products, new software? If not, where else do we go to look? Where do we go to look for our project management software? But we've gone along the journey. We've seen what's going to be happening in the new version. I think it's going to be a greater project improvement, but we need a timeline to set in terms of migration across to the new platform. Looking at the training in terms of maybe some key champions of this new platform. Then it's the indication of then the next method is then to train everyone else on that platform itself, and then go through the changes of the snagging. I mean, there's going to be a few different changes, and again to it, and it may be some issues. So it's understanding that it's not going to be perfect straight away, as long as people understand that changes to anything we do, any methodology, is going to have a sort of a built-in learning experience. Feedback and review is extremely important before we actually go too far down the road, when actually it's going to take a lot more effort to restart something again. So making sure we've got a right timeline, we've got a plan for action, implementation into your practices, and it can help to as I say to pilot these changes on a smaller project before rolling it out to maybe to all your staff or to every single client of yours itself. Now, we talk about clients. Advising our clients is another critical aspect of this. Okay, with the new regulations and guidance in play, our clients rely on us for accurate and up-to-date advice. That's what our role is as consultants. We advise. So when communicating changes, clarity is going to be key. So we need to be prepared to explain not only what the changes are, but also how they impact the client's project, both in terms of outcomes and timelines. So, is this going to delay the project? Is it going to bring the project forward? Are there going to be, additional requirements on them in terms of documentation or additional services and that we're going to have to require to actually implement? And it's communicating that effectively to them at the right time. And again, don't worry, ideally you want to get it all right in the right order, but sometimes, we're still learning. Hopefully there's a little bit there's a little bit of leniency from your clients in such a period of, immense change that, just advising your clients, look, this is coming in, being honest with them, we know this much, but things may change as people go along. The local planning authorities will certainly be, it's going to be an enormous amount of change for them going through, all these different guidance changes and in England with biodiversity net gain, for instance. So they're going to have to, catch up as well and understand that, what it actually means. There's policy changes, legislation changes. It's all have an impact. We will have to work alongside them to understand it. So don't think, that's what it's about managing our clients' expectations. We're all in a learning journey here, or on a learning journey. So emphasize the positive aspects of why how it should be improved, the environmental impacts and compliance benefits. And remember, managing expectations is going to be crucial. So we've got to be realistic about the challenges and the potential for delays and additional costs. It's about being honest to ourselves and to others. It's not trying to mask, I'm the expert in biodiversity net gain, I'm the expert in these new guidance. Don't worry, what they're saying is wrong. No, we may get things wrong ourselves, and it's understanding that, and it's being considerate, having that honesty with ourselves that we will get some things wrong as we go along in this journey. Okay, and I suppose finally, we touched upon this. I suppose he's looking at, well, okay, what advice, what support is there out there for us? And mentioned about, podcasts, there's the guidance notes themselves, the booklets, there's the websites to go on, the professional websites. It's keeping up to date with that, attending these courses, Q Fields Open, to help stay informed about the changes and improve our skills. So it's a lot to take in. It can be quite overwhelming, but hopefully that's helped in terms of about navigating change and adopting to these new ecological guidelines. I really do advocate, seeking out support. Now, that may be support through your colleagues, maybe support through, social media, for instance. But I think as humans, we really do crave that connection, and where you get it is going to be, is going to be crucial. So I really do advocate for, a collaborative approach, getting advice, getting a buddy out there, mentoring, coaching services. I think it all really does help. And we all need support throughout our journey. No one should be, feel that they need to be isolated from what we do and what we do as ecologists, because if we want to achieve our outcomes, our own, and live up to our own values, we need to address our own limiting beliefs, whatever they may be, recognize them. Some of them may not go away then, or may always be there, but it's looking at that. How do we manage those expectations? How do we manage our little inner critics and so forth, which do pop up from time to time? And having a coach really does help that, explores that, gives you techniques and tips on how to manage it. But the good thing about coaching is that mentoring, you can, if you want to learn a new skill, get up to speed and bring up your expertise, mentoring is great and it serves a purpose. Coaching is sort of bringing it out in you. You probably have the answers already, but it's just exploring that and making sure that, you can bring it out to yourself. And as I say, you probably have the better solutions than maybe another person does. So a good coach will help you bring that out. So I'm going to stop waffling now. I hope that's been useful for this month about navigating change. Now, I'm going to leave you with this. In the next few months, we're going to be exploring great crested newt licensing. We're going to be talking to different individuals about their licensing experiences, what they do in terms of field work, and also, obtaining different licenses, whether they be in England, in Wales. I'm trying to get some for Scotland, but, it's going to be a little bit challenging at the moment. We're going to be looking at different licensing schemes, the district licenses scheme, such as through Natural England, through Natural Resources Wales, and also through Nature Space. So that's something to look forward to. Probably won't come on set until April, but just to say that's what I'm doing now, being open and honest about what I'm actually looking at. Now, if you want to get involved, if you want to suggest a topic or a theme that we should be talking about on the Ecology Academy podcast, please do get in touch. Contact me at hello@ecologicacademy.co.uk and leave a message there, which we can pick up. I will repeat to that. We're looking for co-hosts. I'm sure you can. If you can do a better job than me and stop waffling on as I'm doing now, and have some benefit, you want to learn a new skill. So I really am looking for some podcast hosts and co-hosts to actually take this podcast forward. If that's you, again, hello@ecologicacademy.co.uk and say the reasons why, what you can help with. Okay, well, that's all for now, but thank you again for listening to me, Richard Dodd, on the Ecology Academy podcast. If you enjoy our show and want to help, then please click on the subscribe button and rate us on your favourite podcast player, as that's how you can inspire ecologists in the making, help retain great talent, and provide insights of our industry to a much wider audience of why ecology really does matter. Thank you. And remember, learning is a lifelong endeavour, so stay curious, be adventurous, and build bridges for others to cross.